In this conversation, we unwrap the tech leadership journey of Sebastian Nell. Sebastian is an organizational developer, people enabler, and servant leader. He's an accomplished CEO and founder of multiple tech companies, the most recent one being ESSQUARE. ESSQUARE is helping companies in their digital transformation journey with their team for hire concept. Previously, Sebastian has worked on the cusp of innovation within the gaming industry for some massive giants that everybody would recognize, including Electronic Arts and Crytek. Crytek specifically known for making the game Far Cry, among many other popular video games. We discuss a wide range of topics. Some of them include why Germany is lacking tech innovation and how that can be improved. Cultural differences between tech startups in the United States and Europe, especially Germany. How decentralizing decision-making companies can make them faster, more innovative, and resilient. Why Sebastian had bad experiences with tech recruiters and headhunters in the past, and why HR managers should switch from being heads of human resources to heads of resourceful humans. We also discuss why AI needs humans and how it's a net positive for society overall, and finally, the value of human creativity in the world of AI. We also briefly touch on the topics of AR and VR, as well as the advice that Sebastian would give to young people who are thinking of getting into tech, or tech co-founders who are on the cusp of hypergrowth, as well as what subjects he would personally teach in the school curriculum to fix the education system. Sebastian is a very fascinating guy. This was my second conversation with him. I always find it very insightful. We do have some technical difficulties halfway through, but I hope this doesn't impact your viewing or listening experience. This is a Baldur Connect podcast. Baldur Connect is specializing in recruiting for tech companies. If ever such a need arises for your company, feel free to reach out. And now, without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Sebastian Nell.
Unwrapped Tech Leadership Journeys, Baldur Connect podcast.
So first of all, Sebastian, I'm very happy to have you on the show. As I mentioned, it's mutual as well. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And last week, I also wish we had recorded it. I think it'd be great to do it again and again in the future. For those listening, for those who don't know who you are, could you just give a bit of a background, what you do and who you are and some of your experience?
I'm super happy to introduce myself again. I'm Sebastian. I run a little software company called ESSQUARE. We're a team for hire. It means we work for our clients as a complete team. I've been doing this since 2013, since 2017. The current setup, before that I was a consultant running the product development department within agencies in Germany. And before that I worked in the gaming industry, which was sort of my professional upbringings, where I learned how to build products, to work with with amazing teams, and I just learned the basics of what I am today. Before that I was working as a software engineer, and before that I tried to become a professional basketball player, but it didn't work out, so I had to find something else to do, which was playing computer games and then coding. So
it worked out well for you in the end, so far.
It did, and I'm super happy the way it is right now. I'm sort of living the dream, even though that the dream isn't like it's not always fun, and not all the things that you do every day are great, but in total I'm super happy where life, professional and private life, is heading. So I'm a happy person.
And I think you're in generally a very humble person. You worked in the gaming industry. You worked for some big players like EA Sports. I mean, you worked on some pretty cool products with collaborated with cool CEOs. Can you maybe share a bit more of your time at EA Sports or just in the gaming industry in general?
So it wasn't EA Sports. EA Sports just a department that was in Electronic Arts. I had the pleasure to work for. So there were very few development studios in Germany that really made impact, and I was lucky enough because I was organizing LAN parties. It's one of my first businesses that I did, and I got to know a couple of people here in the Rhine-Main region from Related Designs. And back then it was Phenomic Game Development, the inventors of the Settlers. So I became, I wouldn't say friends, but I knew who they were. And so back then they were then looking for a QA intern or a QA engineer, and I signed up for it. I went there and wanted to join the gaming industry because it was like the passion that I had after sports. I always was a gamer, so I thought I could really make use of my skills as a gamer and coder back then.
Combine pleasure and business.
Exactly. Um, and this is what I then did, and was lucky because it was during the time that Phenomic, who were back then looking for a publisher, got bought from EA, and EA, as a large American company, was something that the small German studio wasn't ready to do. But because of my past in the US, I went to high school in the US. I immediately bonded with the Americans, and so I moved into a new role as a producer, and helped produce Battleforge, which was one of the first microtransaction games, so online games for EA, and because it was like a pioneering time. I had super fun relationships with guys from DICE, for instance, like the Swedish studio who does a Battlefield series, because they were developing a microtransaction game at the time as well. And it was like early days of online cloud technology and all this.
So you're at the cusp of innovation in the gaming industry.
Exactly, and I loved it. So that's because it was new, because it was something where there was lots of uncertainty. How is this going to turn out? Like because from a traditional perspective, EA was very good in selling box products, like putting a box into a MediaMarkt or any other retail store and selling it. But they weren't, like, from an organizational standpoint, they weren't tailored towards building microtransaction and free-to-play games, which it created some tension at times because the organization wasn't ready. But I learned so much back then how an organizational structure can hinder innovation, which is still like I still see these learnings from there in my day-to-day business, and so I can relate a lot to the people who are elected to change, to adopt innovation.
You mentioned this briefly last time we spoke, that whenever you try to take this, I can't recall if it was to Europe or to Germany specifically, the way of rolling out the new system as you guys worked on it didn't really work out, or some people were reluctant to adapt. Whereas you look at the big games now, like Fortnite, a lot of games are free, but they make the money on the back end with the microtransactions and skins and all that.
Yeah, so it was like we were 2007, 8, 9. It was early days. Like World of Warcraft had its peak with the subscription business, and then there were the first games coming out as pure microtransaction. It's funny to see how organizations like Riot, for instance, who developed League of Legends in 2009, because it was very similar to what our game could have been, but they didn't have a big publisher in the backend, so they moved into that innovative space and iterated over their business model and thought about how they can attract a large player audience and basically monetize on that audience with skins and with those items. So
the add-ons.
It's exactly, and it's kind of interesting to see how different approaches organizations take that have a more that are not as established as like EA was, because there was lots of processes in place, lots of roles in place that hindered moving forward. And with Riot, they were...
So they could take more risks and try something different.
They could, because there wasn't something that was established. Like, of course, they probably had also problems of a different kind, but for me, from the perspective that I had in the industry, I always looked at them as like a great example of how you can take that innovation and move it forward and make it successful, versus EA, who had a really hard time finding a place where they are where they could make a profitable business from the new innovation in tech.
Do you see that it's almost risky to be too early to something? Because like Apple didn't invent the first smartphone or the first most of the things they come out with, right? They just kind of wait till it becomes the norm, and then they just do it better than the previous company.
Which is absolutely fair. I think it's good. It depends. It's like if you're in Germany and you look at the German market, there's almost no first to market innovation anymore. We're all, I wouldn't call us laggards. In many industries we are. We're not at the forefront anymore. And I think this is because the organizations that we have and the urge to create something new isn't there anymore for those established organizations because they're so busy doing what they're currently doing that they have a hard time figuring out how to move forward from the state that they're in. And yeah, it's fair. Change is hard. Change is probably like the hardest discipline within any organization. But if you look at the technology advancements that we have these days, change becomes inevitable because you have to. Otherwise, you're not moving with the market, and the market is changing super fast.
And you mentioned during your time in the States, they have a completely different mindset around business in general, around startups, and how Germany is lacking behind in digitalizing their processes, their technology, and all that kind of stuff. Could you maybe share some of your biggest takeaways between doing business in, let's say, US versus Europe or Germany in general?
I think I had a discussion with one of my engineers, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago, and we basically, we talked about the differences even between the engineers, that American organizations, startups value the engineers way more than European companies do that. And I think it's not only the engineers, it's in the US. When you're brought up with the attitude of dishwasher to millionaire, and you're responsible for your own success. There's no one else stepping in and helping you. And same goes for the organizations, for the businesses and startups. If like not everything moves together, you will not succeed. And if you're not in, you're out. And this goes in the US, like you can fire someone within 24 hours, which is insane. In Germany, never possible. You have a situation where you lay back and say, management, you tell me what to do, and I might think about doing it because this is the way how they approach it. And it's like, no, you want to give your commitment to an organization. You want to contribute value to the organization, not only in your specific area, but also in like the wider things around it. If you find something not working well in the US, someone's going to raise his hand and say, this is shit, let's fix it. And the German's like, I saw this back there, it's shit. And this is the kind of different attitude that I at least felt when I was working for American companies versus German companies.
Do you think that starts in the universities? Is it a cultural thing, or is it maybe you come into an existing organization where things have been done this way for 20, 30 years and you just kind of fall into the machine like a cog?
I think it's cultural, or at least I feel it's cultural, because like even like in the US there are some old-fashioned organizations as well, but for them to change, it's a lot easier. They don't have so many restrictions. So the typical hire and fire mentality, for instance, is something in the US. If you decide to change your strategy, you change your strategy. In Germany, you have to have the workers' council come in, and you have to have lawyers, and you make sure that everything works, and then you do a change plan, which is insane. Change never works by plan. It's a different topic. And then they have a 2-year change plan, how to move into that new structure. And it's like this formalization of everything in Germany that I think is hindering a fast way of changing. Nonetheless, it has its benefits. Because it's slow, it makes sure that everyone's part of it is taken care of, and you have like a different culture of changing versus the US. It's just bam, you're fired. Like within EA, the reason I left EA for Crytek was basically I said, well, our share price is not good enough, so let's fire 2,000 people. I'm like, wow, okay, and then and that's what they did, and their share price increased, and everything worked out for them. They rehired probably half of them, but it's just the way that they approach it. I wouldn't necessarily say that's good, but it works for them versus the German organizations would never be able to do something like this, and they have more responsibility towards the people because it's something, especially in Germany, that we're a social state. That we this comes first. I think it's good. Nonetheless, like there's pros and cons for both.
Maybe that's one of the reasons why German engineering in general is considered as reliable. It's steady. You know exactly what you're getting. It's maybe some kind of process or design that's been around for a long time, and they just keep improving it, making sure everything is functioning as it should.
Oh, I have a different opinion on that. So German
I'm curious. Tell me
engineering,
about that.
well, the German engineering was probably exactly what you just said, but I haven't experienced it for quite a while because I think the people haven't moved forward. I think German engineering has brought up so less innovations within the last 20 years that I think that there's so many other countries in the world that have overtaken us in terms of innovation in engineering and basically any innovation.
I thought you were going to say the other way, that there's some advancements in engineering that maybe the average person's not aware of.
So I work with middle-sized companies, and I work with those who haven't changed. I help them because we as a team for hire, what we do is like our target group is software developers or software organizations that have been on the market for almost 20 years, are trying to build a new product and don't know really how. So we come in, we help them build that new product, the foundation for their product, not only the technology, the technologies and the new infrastructure. So we're specialized in cloud development, but also the methodology of how you develop those kind of products. We help them recruit the right people for their organizations. It's a very tailored process for those organizations to move forward, to find a way how they can be market relevant again, and find the way how they can establish a new way of using their old culture to build something new. And to answer your question, I think we are currently at the state that German organizations have to change because the market is changing so fast. And if we don't come back to our old habits and establish them with new technologies and with the new market, I think we are going to see more decline of German companies being relevant in the fields that they are currently relevant.
And actually, I got a quote here. I'm not sure if it's from you or from one of your team members, but it's from your company page. And I'm just going to read it out because I think it's relevant to this, and then feel free to comment on it as you please. So one of the things you mentioned is you're building organizations and technical capabilities necessary to grow into a cutting-edge digital business. But the next thing immediately after that is, we also enjoy jumping into legacy systems and crying about how awful the code looks and how terrible the software behaves in a typical software engineering manner, but eventually we'll improve what needs to be improved and find a solution for any challenge that we can solve with technology. We help make your existing products even better, always. Tell me how does that usually go when you go to a company?
That's a schizophrenic side of things. The one side is the let's build something new. Yeah. So everyone's hyped up about using new technologies, using new methodologies, and everyone's, behind it and moving forward, like the startup thing. This is something that we love in larger or smaller organizations. Building new products is always fun. But the reality is, and that's the schizophrenic thing, is organizations already they already have things, they already have products, they already have processes, they have products that they want to improve, and this is what actually our work is 80% of the time. We come into an organization and we help them where they are to move forward, and by saying we will make their product better, if we improve a process, if we make their time to market faster, if we kill technical depth, if we create a new feature with them, if we find a way how they can improve their development process, it's making them better. It's not like we're coming in and telling them what to do and how to build this amazing organization. It's helping them improve in an iterative way, very slow, very focused on what the goal has to be, instead of changing everything.
And you're big on not telling them what to do, that it has to be this way. You guys kind of go in there and you give recommendations. You try to empower the people to be part of the change, to initiate the process, isn't it?
Yes, that's super important. So when I started, I was alone as a consultant. I worked as a consultant with those product organizations. And I was jumping in and I was helping them find ways to build a strategy around a new product or identify growth paths for them. What happened in the end was always they shook my hand and said, "It's great, we should do this, but we can't." And it was pissing me off because I love creating things and creating value for an organization. So when the rest of the ESSQUAREians joined in, who are software engineers, architects, they're psychologists, agile coaches, or organizational designer, we come in not by with the attitude of let's go and change everything, but with let's see what's here. Let's see what the status quo is to find out how an organization can be moved to their next level. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're now building the hyper scalable startup super techie, but we're improving them step by step with whatever their goal is. And especially with German companies, it's they have a heritage. We were working for a Bavarian company, for instance. They're based in Rosenheim. They're one of the the second largest developer of software for bookkeepers and accountants, and they have a great heritage. They have a great culture. And why would you change this in general? They need lots of improvements, of course, to become a more modern cloud development organization. But it's not like that we're going and saying, look, your culture is bad. It's how can we take that culture and make sure that whatever we define as a step forward helps them move forward with what's already there. So that's where we jump in and make recommendations on how we can achieve this. Always together with the client, not by forcing them to do something. That's the business model. And
based on our previous conversations, I would describe you. Well, that's a couple of the key takeaways that I had, but I would categorize you as an organizational developer, servant leader, and people enabler. And maybe we can zoom in and double click on any one of those points, but you talk quite a bit about being a servant leader rather than, the typical boss and employee.
Yeah, I like the term a lot because I think it makes it clear what my goal is within my organization. Like in ESSQUARE, we're a democratic team. We make decisions together. We're small, and that's the reason why we're small, because we think that we want to build a world where everyone can take responsibility for how we build our workplace and how we work. And for me as a servant leader is I want to enable people and I want to enable organizations to make their own decisions. I'm there as a moderator, as a facilitator, as someone who has seen many things and can get recommendations on how to move forward. I know how to connect the dots. I love seeing systems and how systems tick, especially for our clients. And I can go in and not tell them what to do, but I can facilitate finding a solution. And it's so much more valuable than just telling them the solution right away. It's seeing how they sort of move to the path of finding their own solutions and keep them can walk by themselves. And that's like actually our business model. So it's an independence business model. We have a strict timeline of 2 years. So we're with our clients for 2 years, and after 2 years, we drop the pen, we leave. We enable them first. So that's our goal within those 2 years, of course. But for me, I couldn't do it any other way than being a servant for them. I do the same thing for the people that work at ESSQUARE. And yeah,
and on the topic of enabling people as well, one interesting question that I asked you last time we spoke is, let's say if you could work on whatever project you wanted to work, if money was no issue or none of those constraints were in place, what would you do? And you basically said something along the lines of, I would make a bunch of money and give it to people that want to build cool stuff and enable them to kind of bring their dreams into reality. I thought it was a very refreshing thing to hear from somebody who's a CEO of a company, and it's not a very common thing to hear.
I love people with passion, and so I'm passionate about what I do, but I don't have good product ideas. I don't know how to I can how to make the world a better place. It's a stupid saying, but I try this at ESSQUARE. I try to make my and the ESSQUARians' life better. But if I see people that have like this glimpse in their eye and they really want to achieve something, I love to help them. It's just I can't do it. Just walk by and say, no, I'm not going to help you build your company, build your product, and so on. It's just what drives me. So it's my call it North Star at ESSQUARE, and everyone thinks the same. It's like, yeah, we want to help people build the products that they have the passion for, and it doesn't matter if it's bookkeeping or accounting software. Those people love their product. I mean, it's literally, we were amazed by how much love they have for their little product. And it makes it so much easier for us to jump in and help them achieve what they want for their clients. But at the same time, we have ESSQUARians who have ideas, who want to try out different stuff. For instance, build a small company that it's a physical product. It has nothing to do with tech. But for ESSQUARE, we built this organization to enable these people within ESSQUARE to go and find a way how to build their dreams, and we support them because we believe that this is the essence of what an organization is there for. It's the value of our work is to create more organizations.
So you're almost putting gasoline on the fire and basically letting that spark explode into whatever the person wants it to be. On the same note, I was listening to a podcast and this lady was talking about bees. So you would think, how long can somebody talk about bees, right? The podcast went on for almost 4 hours. And it was like the most fascinating conversation because she was so into it and she was just so passionate, like describing this process and the queen and all of that. And I thought, wow, I'm so thankful for people like her who are actually working to preserve the bee colonies and, multiply them and so on. And it's like, man, I'm really happy people like her exist.
Yeah. At the same time, who also need to exist, and that's where I see ESSQUARE is people that enable them to continue to do that. And it's so important that you have to have a supporting structure in place in order for those people to continue what they're passionate about. Because I bet she's not passionate about bookkeeping or building the tool to calculate her bees, and those things are the things that we do. We love. We define structures how they can continue with what they're passionate
doing
about.
What they do even better, basically.
Exactly. And this is it doesn't matter if it's like one person, like an entrepreneur has a big idea that we support, or if it's within a development team. That a person who wants to become a better developer. For us, it's the same thing. He's passionate about, say, front-end development, and he's not good in micro front-ends yet because he doesn't have the experience. And what we do is we find a structure, find a way how we can coach him, how we can together build up knowledge that he's striving in the area that he wants to strive, and then it makes the team better, makes him better, and in the end, the organization.
And I have a weird question. It's on the same note, but it seems a little bit weird for the audience, especially. Are you a spider or are you a starfish?
Starfish, man. Starfish. That's what I love.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for the audience, it's probably easy. So I had a great colleague at Crytek, Heiko Fischer. Go look him up. He has one of the nicest TED Talks ever. And he gave me a book. I think it was 2009. It was from Ori Braffman, The Starfish and the Spider. It basically sparked my interest in decentralized organization. It's the power of leaderless organization. And the spider is the equivalent to a very hierarchically organization where you cut the spider's head off, the legs will fall, and the organization will crumble. And with the starfish, it's the opposite. It's a network organization. It's decentralized. If you cut one half off, it will regrow, and the other half will regrow as well. And so this is something that inspired me extreme, and it still is. I keep telling about this, reading this book, and then thinking about, okay, how can I build an organization that's completely decentralized? And just recently, found ways through other experts. For instance, another book recommendation, Team Topologies. It's very IT development, product development focused, but still like the essences of having organizational units being completely independent with a large organization. It's just so valuable for the whole system if you actually achieve the starfish structure within a system. That I think that's the way to go. It's the same for me. So ESSQUARE, I see our core that we are as just one of many network organizations that hopefully will be the future of the ESSQUARE network. And it doesn't matter if we own those companies, we don't really care about this, but about the companies that are contributing value to the system. That's the ones that we want to build and decentralize and have. That's what we do with our team for hires. We have 2 team for hires already, and yeah, we share some things, but at the end we're completely independent and do different things different. And it's more efficient.
How, with decentralized technology, with blockchain, how some of the companies may or may not potentially take away from the current businesses. So what's your view of that in general?
So in general, decentralization, I think for me, it's something that I've been thinking about the last 10 years. How can we create more decentralization in organization, decentralized decision making, decentralized anything in order to create more value in organizations than there is before? Because if you're in a hierarchical organizations, you're as responsive, flexible, strategic, powerful as there's a small portion of people within that organization. If you enable everyone in that organization to make decisions decentralized, you will be a lot faster, you will be a lot more innovative, you'll be a lot more resilient. And this is something I believe is going to be the future of the successful organizations. Nonetheless, if you look at Germany, they're very reluctant in order to build those kind of organizational structure because middle management is not finding its role in those autonomous teams, decentralized. And yeah, as long as we don't have solutions for that, I think they don't want to move. And it's tricky because we've been doing this since the industrial age, building those kind of metrics organizations, siloed, hierarchical, and now just the recent years we're thinking about how can we become more agile. And usually becoming more agile in German organizations is the IT is now agile. They work in like interdisciplinary teams, but the rest doesn't change. So it's I think hard for them to adapt to a decentralized structure because they don't see or have a vision of how this can potentially make their business better or more valuable.
Speaking of teams, I have a question. Can you tell the audience who is Olga from Ukraine?
Olga from Ukraine, she has her own business now. I think a successful one. Olga's was at Crytek, one of our engineers that we had in a 30-man team. So at Crytek, I learned from Heiko and from the Freedom team, how it's called, how decentralized, fully empowered teams could look like. And we tried to mimic this in our team that we're bringing to live, which was called the G-Phase team. G-Phase was a very fun little product, which was crazy. It was, in the end, I would compare it to Twitch, but earlier than Twitch. So we decided that we wanted to be a democratic team. Team hires team process meant that everyone was involved in recruiting people and everyone had to agree 100% to hire that person to the team because we felt it was the most valuable way of adding talent to our group, who was, to be fair, was a very close group. Still have contact with most of them, actually. And Huda, which was the technical director in that group, is one of the best technical people that I call for advice a lot. And he and I, we had the same idea of how we want to run G phase, and the rest of the team jumped in. We said, okay, let's do this. And so we were, I don't remember how many people we were, but we desperately needed a database architect because at the time this was like the position that was super hard to fill. We found someone. It was a Russian engineer who had, I don't even know the companies they worked at before, but he was top notch, really, really good. Everyone had the chance to interview him and was impressed by his technical skills and by the way that he maneuvered through the process, because it's a 2-day process. We would invite them and basically play foosball with them, talk about books, but then also do some coding and technical work on the whiteboard. And then we had this round of, okay, do we want to hire him or not? And we went through the round and everyone was giving us thumbs up. And then Olga comes. And it's like, okay, well, technically, I think he's amazing. He's really, really good. But I have the feeling that he doesn't respect women that much, the way that he talks to women. I think that could be an issue for the future. She felt intimidated by him. But she's still giving her thumbs up, go hire him. And then Saboli, which was one of our designers, was, I think, next or two up next, and he was like, no, I'm never gonna hire this person if Olga, my teammate, feels intimidated by him. I think this is not something that we should do. And he said, no, don't want to hire her. And immediately afterwards, everyone's like, okay, no, you're right. You're right. We can't hire someone like this, who puts our team culture, our team at jeopardy. I think this is something where I love this, because it valued the team so much and valued the team chemistry so much that even though we needed that position desperately and couldn't find one afterwards, what was taken into the hands of the team, and they decided they made a good decision. In the end, I think pro team. And what happened was the people who knew that we needed a database architect, there was people that were then volunteering for, okay, I think we can figure out the work that he did by ourselves and teach ourselves how we could do it. I think it's the way to go for teams to be mature.
And it probably brought the whole team closer together as well. You get a different level of respect for each member. Yeah, that's amazing. And how do you think could bigger companies implement this within existing organizations? Because not everybody's going to have 500 employees sitting in a conference room, thumbs up and thumbs down. So would you approach it team by team, or would you split it up into departments, or do that with key personnel and then let it waterfall from there? What's your view on
that? There's no blueprint. That's whatever your company is able to create. If they get a way of managing 500 people, thumbs up, some thumbs down, amazing. That would be crazy. I can't see that working. There's a thing called Dunbar's number. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's
I think it's 100, isn't it?
No,
or
it's
150.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like
150. That. I don't know the exact number, to be fair. But it's the amount of connection that you can have within a social circle. And if you go down for ESSQUARE, it's, I don't know why, but it's 30. 30 is the maximum number of people that we think we can handle in our organization, the way that we operate right now. And for other companies, it might be different. But if you look then at the smallest team size that you can build, and it goes back to the discussion of how can we decentralize a lot more, you go on a team level and say, okay, these 7, maximum 9 people are a team, and they get to decide who they want to bring in their team or not. You give the responsibility to the team that hires the person, and not HR or someone else, but the team would be a start. But you need to think about what needs to be in place in order to enable them to make those kind of decisions. They need to have 100% transparency on costs, because it's a factor. They need to have 100% transparency on what the expectations of the team are, what they need to build. And they need a clear structure of how many people are actually are good for our team. So if you have 6 people and you can only hire 7, the last person, you need to make sure that the last person that you're hiring brings what moves the team forward, and isn't just an additional head count. But those kind of responsibilities and then the framework for taking those responsibilities need to be in place in order to enable them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to understand kind of your way of viewing it, because you have kind of a non-interference approach. You're not forcing people to do anything. It's more about you're almost like trying to update a company's operating system rather than replacing the RAM or replacing the USB ports or something like that. Would that be an accurate way to describe it? Giving them like a mental model to build their structure around?
Yeah, mental model is a good way to put it. Nonetheless, there's no mental model that fits for all organizations. It's something that they need to develop themselves. And if they decide to remove the RAM, great, but it's their decision. And what I'm trying to help them, or the whole ESSQUARE team, is always trying to help them make sure that they understand what the best next thing to do is for them as an organization. Of course, we jump in and show them what other companies might have done or what best practices are in terms of, for instance, cloud infrastructure. But the way that they, or how we interact and cooperate is, on the level of establishing,
almost installing a new software. Yeah,
with lots of trust. And I mean, ESSQUARE, the team for hire concept wouldn't work if the organization that we work for would trust us. But trust isn't something that you just get with a handshake. You have to prove that the way that you approach. Exactly. And for us, ESSQUARE, one of the things that we always say, we have it printed on t-shirts, is there's no shortcut to experience. And it goes for everything. It's if you work with us, you have to experience first where the benefits are.
Yeah.
Working with us. That's why we have what we call an onboarding phase within those 2 years that we work for a client. And we have a pre-production phase. And now we have a production phase. Basically, within those phases, we are very transparent about what the goals are, what we're going to do. And the client always has the chance to say, okay, look, it's not going to work. Bye. We're good because we're transparent and we can live with this.
And obviously you go help them develop their teams, develop their products, develop their systems. But I know that sometimes you also have to help them recruit the right people. They sometimes miss, a certain person, and you say, look, you need this position in order to move to advance. And from my understanding, sometimes in the past you had a bad experience with recruiters. What was that like? Or what was the experience that you had?
Okay. So yes, we do this for our clients because I think it's also necessary when you, obviously, tech talent is super rare. In order to build your product, you need new people most of the time with things that maybe are not in your organization yet. And we, as ESSQUARE team, we help our clients define the roles that there are in the team, roles that are needed, and positions to be filled moving forward. And we've in the past used several recruiting companies in order to help us find that talent. And before we found Hans and Vincent and you guys, it was just insane how low the quality of the recruiters were. Not necessarily the candidates, but the candidates. Like the briefings that we wrote included culture in the organization, what kind of people work in the organization. We did like little movie clips on like the company introducing themselves to get a kind of feeling of exactly. And so basically what the other recruiters did, they looked at our like the requirements for the position and just matched keywords, and that's it. No cultural fit.
Linux, check. 5 years experience, check.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, no, this can't happen because we're investing so much time in this recruiting process and finding new candidates. And if we have a candidate, especially with one of the clients that we worked with, we introduced the team hires team process for them, and they loved it and said they wanted to adapt it. But that means that you scan 40 CVs and one you invite, and the one that you invite you spend a whole day with, meaning like a team of 15 people spends a whole day with one person who wants to join the team. And it's insane how much money this costs for this process. On the other hand, it's insane how much money it would cost to hire the wrong person. That's why we do it. But if you don't have a recruiter, like understanding this and bringing you people that are in fact
excited to be there,
exactly, it's a waste of time and money. And I understand that with other recruiting companies, the business model is get them as many CVs as you can, and hopefully someone might fit, but we don't really care. So here you go.
Very KPI driven, volume driven. Yeah,
it is, and I think we, not even by coincidence, we hired one. It was most of the time that then we from our network found people, or most of the time actually it was the network, especially for the 2 clients that we had before, and then we met you guys, and that was like, I was impressed by Hannes because he wasn't talking about the technical capabilities. He was talking about the social aspects of that person. He talked to the candidate before, and he could, like, I think he told me that he's very much into dogs, and he couldn't even name the dogs of the person that we interviewed. And it was just Sam was like, who's this guy? Why is he talking about the candidates like he knows them for so much time? And I think that's just the value that it has of working with recruiters who understand what social people are and social skills are. They're not, obviously you have to make a living as well, but you're not that KPI driven, and you could tell from the get-go that you're more into building a long relationship with a client than just sending him as many CVs as you can. So
we found out in this industry that apparently it's not very hard to get clients and maintain the clients if your service is even 10 or 15% better than the standard. So that's been very useful. You work with people, you just my job is to overpromise because I know that the team over-delivers on the people. So it's actually surprisingly not that hard to stand out. And I think that's a lot of the things today. Mediocrity is kind of the standard now. And anybody who's slightly driven any area of your life, exercise or martial arts or whatever that is, basketball, reading, it's very easy to stand apart, I find.
Your experience, really? I have a fairly high standard. So, not
being 10% better only, that is, I'm not saying it's good enough, but I'm saying it's just a lot of mediocrity. And especially, I'm from the Western culture, kind of, I lived in Canada most of my life, Australia. So it's, in Australia, they have the tall poppy syndrome. That basically, if you stand out, they cut you down, right? And I've dealt with that a lot. I was from an immigrant family coming to Canada, speaking broken English initially. And if you're slightly better than the others, it's just the instinct for people to kind of either joke around or try to put you down. So to me, it was just, I developed that mindset of nonconformity and just not being okay with being average. And of course, I have high standards, so do you. But even if you're 10% better, it's not that hard to stand out nowadays, seems like.
Okay. Yeah. I could totally see that. But at the same time, why don't all the people trying to stand out, like be 10% better? Because why are people thinking, like, if you take the recruiting example, my engineers, they all get like 10, 15 LinkedIn messages a week or a month. I don't know. And they're all the same, basically. There's literally none of the times there's something that stands out where they have really put interest into you as a person, that they're all trying the same, and it's so easy to stand out from them. But why don't they understand that it's so easy to stand out from the people? I don't understand why they're not putting much more effort into something that they really like. And then I ask myself, do they really like what they do? There
That's
comes
a good point.
the difference is like, is it a job for them and they just run the system? Because like if they send 10,000 mails, they get what they want, their salary, um, and then they go home and that's it. Or do they invest more? Um, do they love it and still do it? I don't think they do. Um, so I think it's,
That's
if
a
you
good
love
point.
something and if you're really, really passionate about it, um, it's easy to go and stand out, even if it's only 10 or 15% more. If you're passionate about something, I think you go the extra mile. And I see this like, for everyone. And that's where we have diskutierskwer, so we discuss a lot. Um, and we're very theoretic on many things. But what we love is delivering. I mean, so we have a hard time delivering because we have a very high standard. And if it's, for instance, someone who writes a blog post, it's not like they go into a small chamber, write up a blog post for an hour, and then come out and say, "Look, this is it." No, they take 4 weeks, um, and at the end of 4 weeks, they're like, "Still not good enough." And then we're like, "Hey, it's really good. Let's deliver it." And then it's okay to deliver, but it's that attitude of, I really want this to be the best thing possible, and almost not delivering. That is, I think, for us, it's valuable. Sometimes we believe it's too late. It's better to put yourself out there with something, and then discuss and make it better. But it's something that we're super introverted. Like with our clients, we talk a lot, but with the outside world, rarely. That's now we're talking.
It's almost like
outside world, but
no, it's a good conversation. I find it's a balancing game, and you kind of touched on that a couple of times. That in the past conversation that you guys had somebody who was very extroverted, the complete opposite from your team, and you're like, this guy is like too much. He's not going to fit in. But then you just found that he might be really good at outbound sales. Tasks, talking to people on the phone. And it's great finding that balance and finding a way to make the puzzle fit together. I'm kind of in the category perfectionist. I try to get everything perfect to the point where it almost feels like I'm procrastinating to not roll something out because I feel like it's never good enough. And one of my business partners, he's the complete opposite. He's like, let's just put it out. And it was a great balance because if it was up to him, we would deliver things that are not anywhere near the standard, right? If it was up to me, we would never deliver anything. And it was a very nice balancing act in that regard.
Exactly. And this is what your system needs. I mean, if one's too strong, it's going to be bad for the organization. You said it, Alex. With one of our guys who joined last year, he's an engineer, but he brought this completely different attitude to the team, and it's super interesting to see what that does with the rest of the team, the dynamic. So the ability to deliver increased because he was pushing for it, and we were like, no, we can't put it out yet. But then you go and figure out a way how we can put it out and deliver a talk or deliver product description for our new product and so on.
And speaking of people like, having actually passion for what they're doing, again, something that you mentioned previous time we spoke is that HR, something along the lines of HR should almost rebrand from head of human resources to head of resourceful humans. And to me, that really stood out. And it's like, tell me more about that. How did you come up with that expression?
I did. It was Heiko again, Crytek, and the company that he founded is actually called Resourceful Humans, and he's doing, which I think is fun. So I haven't talked to him for a while, but he's doing leadership trainings in VR, so gaming experience where you learn leadership skills. It's an amazing thing, and he coined the term "kill HR" and called for resourceful humans. Yeah, even had a shirt or a hat. I can't remember. It says "Kill HR," which I thought
probably
wasn't
very
funny.
popular on LinkedIn.
And I don't think it was popular. But then when he founded his own company, he had large organizations talk to him. he would explain why he thinks that HR shouldn't be there anymore, and I think most of them agreed. Nonetheless, there are still many German companies who have an HR department who recruits, who determines the learning and development of people in an organization, who have just so much control or input into the development of a person in an organization that I think it's wrong. It shouldn't be with HR. They don't work with that person. They don't see him every day. They can't recommend that what could become better just by being in their HR department and not working with him in a team. That this should be decentralized again. I don't think that the roles that they have as learning development managers, for instance, to help them grow is something that should disappear in organizations. It should be decentralized to where it's actually the most valuable within the teams. And so it's not an HR person, but it's a role within the team. The team discusses, look, we as a team, we need to develop, we need to find a way how to improve X, Y, Z. Who wants to? Do you think there's something that you can improve on, or do you want me to do it? And then at the same time, they talk about, okay, if I do this, then I can teach you next year how to do it, and you become better at this as well. And so the dynamic of, learning development should be something that a team is responsible for, or smaller.
So how do you see it? Would you let's say we kill the HR, right? And would you see still having some kind of HR personnel as part of the team that figure out the logistical part, the contracts, accounts payable, accounts receivable, salaries, contracts, all that kind of stuff, and then letting the teams decide in that kind of thumbs up fashion who should be on their team? Or would you say, would that come to learning and development and training people within teams to take on those leadership, resourceful human kind of roles to promote learning and development within their teams?
So everyone should be capable of taking on that role. I think a system needs to have some structure in place. So contract, for instance, there should be a standard. Who determines if that contract is good or not? Well, you probably need a specialist, but this is not someone that I'd employ. I'd ask my lawyer or whoever that I have it. Salary-wise, who is determining how much salary a person gets? I guess the team. That's what I said earlier about even having the team responsible for their budget, so they can decide how much salary a new hire can get. Or there's other ways how to deal with transparency, but it's something that needs to be in place for the whole system, for the whole organization. It's not one person responsible for it. It's the whole company's responsible for it. Can say, well, I don't like our salary structure, let's fix it. The whole company works on it. Could be a possibility. What everyone needs to be trained in is the responsibility they have when they're recruiting. Because you, as a team member, decide to onboard someone, now that means you, the team, and the organization have the responsibility to give him whatever he needs in order to to become the most productive member. Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's something that the teams need to learn. They don't need special training for that, I think. And they're like, I wouldn't add it, except for the organizational, or the back office work that HR does. You don't need special knowledge, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Could be, but I haven't seen HR add much value to any engineering organizations in the past 12 years.
You mentioned something related to one of the colleagues you're working with in the VR, AR, metaverse space, and that's one of the last topics I want to touch on with you before we wrap up with a couple quick fire questions. But you've spoken in the past about the topic of AI, and if I was to summarize, correct me if I'm wrong, your philosophy is that AI needs humans, and that AI would almost be like a co-pilot for humans in a way. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more and just...
Absolutely. So I recently had the chance to talk in front of a couple of hundred people about artificial intelligence needs human intelligence, and I was elaborating on how now artificial intelligence needs us in order to become more effective and productive for us. Like, it won't replace us. It will just create a job shift. AI for me is not a job killer. It's a job shifter. We will be tasked with different things that we need to do. That AI will be able to replace us in many fields, and especially in engineering. I was looking at it from the perspective, okay, if artificial intelligence is there to automate, like, let's say 60-70% of the tasks that we currently do, what's the value of human work, or what's the value of work that we actually do right now in organizations, and where can AI replace us? And I was elaborating on that topic, and I think there's many aspects that work that will change within the next 30-50 years when it comes to the work that we as a team for hire or as engineers do, and then our social life, or how the economy will change, how our society will change just based on that is going to be tremendous. I don't have an answer on what I need to do now in order to prepare my organization for that, other than what I'm already doing. I'm valuing the humans in my organization a lot more than the work that they do.
Do you foresee a time where whether it's a piece of code or a piece, a blog post or whatever that is, where we will choose to give more value to human produced content rather than AI produced content? Do you think there's going to be a premium to that? Because a software engineer, for example, that's top 1% is, not 10 times more valuable than the average engineer. Could be 1,000 times more valuable with the product that he creates, like Satoshi Nakamoto, or, you can pick anyone you want.
Yeah.
So do you see there being a premium on human produced work?
I think the premium is the creativity and the originality of the work. I think that everything that can be reproduced, so understanding a higher language in programming, I don't think there's any value in this. Like, AI will be able to code or produce code as good as the best 1% of the coders. But it's not about writing code. It's about the creative process of the solution that he's building that code for, where AI, I don't think, will yet be able to replace us. So in that sense, yes, it has more value in terms of the creativity and the originality that goes into that code, or into that blog post, or into that book that an author is writing.
Yeah, because there are kind of two camps of people that I think about quite often. One is obviously Elon, that's terrified of AGI taking over the world. And, could be a real possibility. I don't know. He's way smarter than I am. And the second camp is, you probably know Naval Ravikant, who's the founder of Agile, is like super intelligent guy, like businessman, philosopher. I love any work he puts out. But he says something along the lines of, any serious developer who's written serious code will tell you that AGI is not even close. It's at least 50 years away. And even then, he's not sure that's a threat. How do you evaluate those two sides?
It's easy. I follow the research. So I read all the papers, and AI is just the sum of the parts. So there's no indication mathematically that on a large scale, AI is able to learn something new by itself. There was an interview, I think it was 60 Minutes on CBS or something, where one of the Google people said, look, our AI learned a new language, learned to interpret a new language. And it was BS. It was lots of AI experts later posted the scientific research that he was wrong. And I then started reading up on AGI and the possibility of when it will become reality. It's a far way out, and I think in 50 years' time we'll be a lot smarter how to deal and manage with artificial intelligence or machine learning, robotics, and so on. So the advancements, I think, will be amazing. Do I think there will be an AGI that will impact us in a negative way? No. No, I'm very positive. I'm a believer that technology and technology advancement will make our society and our economy and everything around it better.
And just, I guess, as a caution, let's keep our hand on the pulse just to make sure nothing is developing beyond our understanding or our capability to control it, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see, though, that with this kind of technology, AR, VR, obviously Zuck from Meta rolled out the new goggles the other day, and I mean, I've seen a podcast with him and Lex Friedman. They did it in the metaverse with the whole face scan. I mean, it's incredible. You see the facial expressions and everything. And this is almost like one of the first AR/VR products that feels pretty real. It's not like some cartoonish thing. Do you see that if we let that take over our life, that we lose our humanity? Because, as humans, we're always after the new iPhone, new gadget, new toy. So how do you see that progressing going forward?
I don't think that we'll lose our humanity. I think the things that will make us human will continue to make us human in the future. It doesn't matter how advanced our technology will be. I think it's a matter of how you as a person or we as a society deal with the technology advancements and how we make sure that the things that make us human, our social interactions and so on, will be kept in a way that we, will not be overpowered by the technology or the technology capabilities that we have. I can't look into the future and how it's going to look like, but if you look back 20, 30 years, things that have changed and how we adapted to technology, it's not like the core of anything has that makes us human has changed, even though the technology advancement that we have is just insane. Like iPhones that we have, smartphones, it was unbelievable. Like if I talked to my grandmother,
you couldn't conceive that.
Exactly, they didn't have electricity. Come on, and now we have iPhones. So the advancement is just it's insane. But it still did change much in terms of what makes us human.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of fear mongering of anything unknown, right? It's when electricity came about, the guys who are lighting up the candles in the parks, we're afraid.
It's always, and technology will change a lot of things. I remember, like my father was self-employed as well, and he had a friend who was selling dentist products through catalog and phone, of course. And when the internet came out, he was like, "Nah, it's not going to change anything. Well, writing emails is nice and looking on the websites and so on, but it's not going to change the way that I do business." And like he was bankrupt a couple of years later because he didn't adapt. And, well, it's what happens, right? So if you're reluctant to change, if you're not looking to adapt to things that are possible or made possible through technology, there will be people who will be left behind. And it's what we as a society need to be able to do is to adapt to that. And I think we have done a pretty good job. And if you look at the first industrial revolutions, where like the main workers were farmers and on the fields, and how they moved to the cities. Now industrialization took 100 years in order to, let's say, finish that industrialization part, and the changes within that time were just amazing, and it changed the way that we interact with each other, we behave with each other, how family structures are now perceived, and that's something that will probably continue to change. Nonetheless, is it something that I feel is supernatural to our society, that it will continue to change to something better. Fingers crossed. Like I said this a couple of years ago, that I don't think that we should spend any money on military anymore, that we should have a European army taking care of that. And some idiot invaded the Ukraine, and was glad that we had some money in the military.
I guess unless everybody's on the same page, it's hard to, if there's one outlier, it's hard to account for that. It's unpredictable.
It's true.
I'm mindful of your time, and thank you so much for doing this for so long. I just got a couple final last questions. You can answer them with a quick answer or a longer answer, up to you. The first one is, what advice would you give to young people who don't know what to do and they're considering getting into tech?
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Find something that interests you in tech, and then games industry was something that many people were super scared of, because I thought, in the games industry, only the best of the best are working in the games industry. And what happened was we didn't get any applications because people feared of joining the games industry. And so I then talked to the candidates, and they're like, I was scared. But no, do it. Go out and try to get into the organizations, into the companies that you want to get into, and
cave your own path.
You'll see. Exactly. And it will work out.
What are some trends that you see in the next 5 to 10 years that we should prepare for now when it comes to technology?
Well, AI is the biggest thing. I see this as starting, or having started 2 years, 3 years ago, to become more mainstream, and this is going to just explode so much more that I don't see any other technology being as important as AI or generative AI.
So use it, play with it, experiment, try to build around it, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't think that the tools that are here today will be there next year or 2 years after now, but start experiencing with it. I think one of the smart people that I talked to last week said, look, when the internet came out, we didn't know that email was the big thing and the big use case in the beginning. With AI, we still don't know what the biggest use case will be. I just think that AI already has so many insane use cases that you can incorporate into your daily life already, or daily work life, private life, that you should play around with it and figure out how it can create value for you, because it does. That saves me minutes, hours a day, right?
And let's say you're in charge of the education system, could be in Germany, could be in Europe, could be for the whole world. What subjects or topics would you introduce into the school curriculum? Let's say anybody from the age of 15 to 25, high school to university, that we don't focus on right now.
I have a big problem with the school system in Germany, because look at what's working in the papers and the research, and looking at our school systems. It's not adapted. It's the biggest thing to change. I can't even name one. It's everything. But one thing for me personally, so I prioritize sleep, nutrition, workout as basically making me sane. And since sleep is like the most underrated thing that you can do for your body, it's the most important one. For your health. And there's so much research showing that starting school at 8 is a killer for anything that you want to achieve in education, and remembering, being fit, being able to process new learnings in the morning. So I would, if it's only one thing, I would change the start time of school.
That's great. That's an interesting one. And the last question I have, we actually just came back from a conference, Bits and Pretzels, as you know, here in Munich. It's one of the biggest startup events in the world. And it was quite interesting. I met a lot of really cool entrepreneurs and young people. It's kind of inspiring that I met somebody working on these new semiconductor that are going to send to the ISS into space in collaboration with the German US government. Then met startups that are scanning forest and tracking the animal movement, and just super, super cool guys building drones for defense against suicide bombers and all kinds of stuff, right? But a common trend I notice is oftentimes it's, let's say, 2 to 3 co-founders. Maybe they hired the first couple of people. They got, 3-4 people on board. Maybe they received a pre-seed, or they got some funding, could be $500,000, could be $1 million. And now they're getting ready for the next stage. They got a viable product, they got their beta, and they're, waiting for the next investment. and they're at that stage where they have to grow their team. Their idea is validated. Exactly. So what advice would you give to those companies specifically about growing their team, or just from your experience and your learnings that you had over the years?
I don't have experience in hypergrowth myself. I just see a lot of organizations that have fallen in the trap of needing to hypergrow in order to make their investors happy. I have never seen hypergrowth being an effective way of scaling your business model. And yeah, I don't know if it's me, because I don't have like an exact view on numbers, but it's the pain that the organization that goes through within that hypergrowth phase that I think is not valuable, because what you create is an unhealthy system. If you have a healthy system and you continue to grow it, even if you build a system that is able to grow faster, that's the base that I would, as an investor, look for. It's like, how do you want to grow? How do you want to hire these people? How do you want to onboard and include them? How do you decentralize basically the decision making and give responsibility to the teams that need to grow? That's something that I look at very closely as an entrepreneur and as someone who's joining those hypergrowth teams, because hypergrowth means hyper risk, and we've seen a couple of startups that they had Unicorn, one of the few German ones. They recruited the hell out of people and then had to let a hell out of people go again because they can't. Yeah.
So it's not to succumb to the pressure of the investors, but focusing on growing your team, your products organically, maybe using the money for R&D or equipment or whatever that is, rather than just hiring aggressively, trying to grow as fast as you can.
Try to build a system. Like for me, like it's two-sided. One, as within the organization, I would try to find the best way how to build a system that is able to grow fast, so that is able to cope with so many new people in the organization. As an investor, I would look at the organizations that I want to invest to with this mindset as well. I would look at, okay, how capable is this organization of being able to hypergrow?
Yeah, I think that's a healthy way to look at it. Well, Sebastian, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming on the show. It would be great to have you again in the future. And any links to your company, to anything you want to promote, we'll have it in the show notes. I look forward to do this again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
If this podcast brings you any value at all, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And also keep an eye out for future podcasts.